Broadcasting from Foothill College, this is KFJC, Los Altos Hills, and the Norman Bates Memorial Soundtrack Show. And happening over at the Niles Silent Film Museum tonight is The Lost World. This is the silent film from 1925. Willis O'Brien did the stop-motion animation, and it has it has Wallace Beery with frizzy hair and a full beard in it. And Greg Payne will be playing tonight at 7:30 starting. You can go to nilesfilmmuseum.org to find out more. And Nigel Dreiner, who actually will be joining us in a couple of minutes, he's going to be doing an introduction of The Lost World and talking a little bit about Willis O'Brien. So that's tonight. nilesfilmmuseum.org. Well, what do you say? Let's play some music, shall we? Get ourselves in the mood for talking about The Lost World. Here is Max Steiner. KFJC is your source for sound. This is 89.7 KFJC and the Norman Bates Memorial Soundtrack Show. I'm your host, Robert Emmett, and on the phone I have Nigel Dreiner, who is going to be introducing The Lost World tonight at the Niles Silent Film Museum. Thanks for being on the phone with us.
Thank you, Robert. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah. So first off, let's just talk a little bit about you. Who the heck are you, and what's your interest in Niles?
Well, that's a question that many have been asking for years, myself included.
I have been stymied with my own answers for that very same question, so I understand. But well, why don't you tell us this? Are you a big Willis O'Brien fan?
Oh, absolutely. When I was a kid, actually, I did a little project on Willis O'Brien, I think in like elementary school. And this was pre-YouTube. So all of this, especially his early material, was really, really difficult to find. And I am so thankful now for YouTube and the internet and all this. So much of his stuff is more available now for people to see. But for anybody that doesn't know who Willis O'Brien is, he was best known for his effects work on the 1933 King Kong, which was incredibly revolutionary, was the Star Wars of its day, pretty much influenced everybody. Every film that came after, special effects film that came after 1933, was heavily influenced by King Kong. But O'Brien worked, before King Kong, he worked on a film called The Lost World, which was a silent film from 1925. And it's pretty much the prototype for King Kong. It follows sort of the same story. But you will, if you do come see the film at the Niles S&A Silent Film Museum tonight at 7 p.m., you'll see the effects for 1925 are incredibly good. We have CGI and we have all these things now, but for 100 years ago, which this film is celebrating its 100th anniversary, it's so impressive. And anybody that's interested in special effects work or in that industry, if you've never seen The Lost World, it is definitely something to check out. And not only for that, but the fact that if you've never seen a silent film before, this is a great first silent film to see, and it's presented in a wonderful theater, the Edison Theater, which is retrofitted from a 1913 Nickelodeon that was right next to the S&A Studios, where Charlie Chaplin made movies and Bronco Billy Anderson. So you'll get a real retro, vintage experience. You'll feel like you're walking into the world of 110 years ago.
Well, so the nice thing about The Lost World is that it has it has a really good plot, a really good storyline that falls all the way through it. Of course, that's because it was adapted from a book by Arthur Conan Doyle, who's best known for Sherlock Holmes. It's I think it's a story that would hold up well even if they remade it today.
Technically, I don't consider it a full remake, but Jurassic Park: The Lost World definitely borrows elements from the Conan Doyle novel, including, taking the dinosaur back to civilization and having the dinosaur, no spoilers here. This movie is 100 years old, so I hopefully won't hurt anybody's feelings. So the Jurassic Park Lost World does borrow a lot of plot points from this film. But, everything from Godzilla to all the monster movies from the 50s and 60s, Monster on the Loose films, the prototype of all of that was The Lost World. And it's very interesting to see. I mean, I've been watching the film since I was a kid, but you always find something new, and you always get a chance to really appreciate how they were able to accomplish so much with so little at that time, and it's very inspiring.
Well, so what's really nice is that Wallace Beery plays Professor Challenger, who has just returned to London from a trip to South America where he found the Lost World. He's trying to present his findings, but of course he has no proof, so he sort of gets booed off the stage, and he gets people to volunteer to go back with them. And what I thought was a nice little touch was that there was a man left behind, and his daughter is looking to find him. And so they get funding, not so much as an exploration for dinosaurs, but as a rescue operation for the man that got left behind. I thought that was a really clever touch with the plot.
Yeah, very much so. And interestingly enough, Bessie Love, who plays the female lead in the film, she is not in the novel. She was added because I guess they thought the film was kind of or the book was kind of on lead to the film, which Bessie Love fills that void perfectly. But yes, definitely an adaptation with some changes from the novel. I read the novel when I was younger. Probably should read it again. It's been a long time. Very, very interesting film, and there was even a song written for it that was released in the 20s called Our Lost World of Love, and it's very difficult to hear. I don't think there's any copies on YouTube or to download, but it was a popular song in 1925, and there's a sheet music that's been released for it, so it does exist.
Oh, wow. That's great. Well, we're talking with Nigel Dreiner on the phone. He'll be introducing The Lost World tonight at the Niles Silent Film Museum over in the historic Niles neighborhood of Fremont. And you can go to nilesfilmmuseum.org to find out more. What's interesting about Willis O'Brien, he actually started work at the San Francisco Daily News way back a long time ago and was tinkering with doing the dinosaur sculptures, and actually even had some of his miniatures displayed at the Panama Pacific International Exhibition, which was the San Francisco World's Fair in 1915, and that led him to being discovered by people who had a couple of short movies where he did some of his stuff.
Since we're mentioning O'Brien's early days, it just popped into my head that he was also an amateur boxer, O'Brien. And if you watch King Kong when he's fighting the Tyrannosaurus Rex, O'Brien incorporated some of his boxing moves into King Kong when he's beating up the T-Rex. So I always thought that was kind of a funny little homage.
Well, it's just, you go with what you know, right?
For sure.
So, that you're in town because you're from Florida, but you were here last weekend for the Charlie Chaplin Days.
Yes, Chaplin Days. It's been going on for a long time. Here at the museum, because as locals know, Chaplin made a few short films here in Niles when he was signed up with the S&A company in 1915. The most iconic film that he made here was called The Tramp, and it features footage of him in Niles Canyon and all these locations that you can still go and visit today. In fact, the museum does a location tour during Chaplin Days where David Keane and Rena, they take you through Niles and show you where Chaplin made these films, including, Chaplin, but then people like Ben Turpin and Bronco Billy Anderson, which were all, mainstays at S&A. Their homes are still here. You can visit them. The studio, unfortunately, burned down in the 30s, but there's a fire station there now, ironically. But there's a very nice plaque on the fire station. So, the S&A story is told still 115 years later, and I'm very proud to be part of this organization and to be sharing these wonderful films with everyone.
And so the Lost World plays tonight at the Niles Silent Film Museum, and it's right downtown Niles. You can go to nilesfilmmuseum.org to find out more. And you also do some singing, because Vince Giordano and the Nighthawks, who released who played music of Leroy Shields, and that shows up in The Little Rascals and Laurel and Hardy. You sang a song with them, didn't you?
I did. That was pre-COVID. I'm not only part of the Chaplin fan and Willis O'Brien and all that, but I love the 20s music, Al Jolson, Eddie Cantor. So over the past decade, I have been performing those songs all over the country at events and out Los Angeles. That trip was that was in New York. That was Vince. Vince is an Oscar winner. Well, maybe one day he'll be an Oscar winner too. But he's a Grammy winner for Boardwalk Empire, and because they did the music for that. His band is just as authentic as it can get, and the few times I have had the opportunity to perform with that band, it really feels like you're in a movie. Like, you can't believe that that this is really happening. It feels like time travel. So maybe I'll try to visit him this year. You're inspiring me now to go back out and see him.
So talk a little bit about the inspiring music of the 20s that you like.
Now, the 20s were such an interesting time because, I could go on for hours about this, but I'll keep it short. It's, post World War I, so everyone kind of let loose after World War I, and the stress and the anxiety and all of that. So the 20s were really an explosion of culture and of new ideas and of just sort of letting yourself go. And that's why so much was created in that era, and so much innovation. The Lost World, of course, was made in 1925, but 2 years later, sound films with the jazz singer and Al Jolson and all that completely changed the industry again. So, if you look at every year of the 20s, there was some sort of huge innovation that was brought into the world. And, every time, the more you read about that era, the more you learn, the more you realize how just trailblazing that whole decade was.
And also that it was a lot more randy, so to speak. That because we're talking about the pre-code days in films, but also there was a lot of people who were being much more open about love.
Yeah, very, very true. I think it was a rejection of the 19th century button-down essence of that era. And I would say that the 1920s was maybe the first real decade of the 20th century, whereas the teens and the early 1900s were still sort of connected to the 1890s as far as personality and dress and all of that goes. The 20s is when things really just kind of went into high gear and make way for the 20th century.
Well, speaking of the 20s, you went last night to Grace Cathedral to see the Sasha Jacobson Quintet accompany Nosferatu. Tell us a little about that experience.
Yes, I'd never been there before. I had a friend who clued me in on it happening, and I decided to head down with a friend, and it was incredible. I've never seen a silent film in a church, especially one that mirrors Notre Dame almost. I expected to see Quasimodo coming down from the rafters. It was phenomenal, and that's one of my favorite films. It's the film that got me into silent movies, much like many people. But it was great to see it with not only a live orchestra, a live band, but in such an amazing venue. So definitely, if you've never seen a silent film in Grace Cathedral, I hear they do them semi-frequently, and it's connected with the San Francisco Silent Film Society. So definitely something to check out. I'm happy that I went.
Yeah. Well, and that brings us up to talking about The Terror of Dracula. This was one of your early introductions to Nosferatu that you thought was a different cut.
Yeah. Yes. So, wow, you've done your homework, Robert. Terror of Dracula is essentially an 8mm cut-down version of the film that was released in, I believe, the 1960s. The editors decided to make some interesting cuts to the film, and basically what I did was I feel like I saved it from obscurity because it was only really available in low-quality prints. So I took one of the low-quality prints and I rebuilt the film with restored elements. So that is on YouTube with a nice soundtrack, and I did a little introduction before it to kind of explain what it is. And that's done very well, and people seem to enjoy that also.
Well, the interesting thing about the soundtrack you got was Frederick Hodges. Frederick Hodges, who is a longtime accompanist for the Niles Silent Film Museum. He's not there tonight, but he has a particular flair with the piano and working with silent films. So that was a good coup to get him.
Yes, he's been doing that a long time, and he's worked with a lot of very famous folks as well on their album. So yeah, it was definitely a nice gesture for him to record a soundtrack for that.
So, the thing that's so interesting about our movie history is that if you look at The Lost World is 100 years old and made in 1925. It still holds up pretty well. The effects, the effects are pretty good for 100 years ago. And it has got a really good story that keeps moving. That one of the things that people keep forgetting about silent films is how good and sophisticated they got right before sound came in. It was sort of like the early sound films caused films to take a step back because of the technology. So there are lots of incredible themes and scenes and photography in silent films that people don't get exposed to mostly.
That's very true, although I will say that I feel like in the past 15 years or so, silent film has become more popular than it was when I was just discovering it in the early 2000s. And I think that has a lot to do with the internet and the fact that these films are more readily available now than they were when you had to go to a library or Blockbuster or rent a 16 millimeter print. You really had to go out of your way to find these films. But now you can type in most any silent film, famous one, and it's up on YouTube for free. Whether it should be or not is another question. But
well, and locally, we certainly have the Silent Film Festival. We have the weekly show at the Niles Silent Film Museum. So there's lots of opportunities for people to be exposed to silent films.
The team over there at the Niles Museum, they do amazing things. In the past few years, they've begun renovations to take the theater, try to turn it back more into what it looked like in 1913, because it was a multitude of things over the years. It was a garage, it was a dance hall in the 20s, so they had to keep peeling off all these layers of paint from all the different things that it was from over the years. But now it's on its way to becoming, what it was in 1913, and they have an amazing staff of people there that do archiving and that do film restoration. And there was a film called Mabel's Adventures that was donated to the museum a few years ago, a lost Mabel Normand film from the Keystone era. And Mabel Normand was kind of like, I like to think of her as the 1910s Elaine Bennis. She could hang with the boys, but also give her right back to them. And so that was a lost film that the museum discovered and they restored, and it's now on their YouTube channel. It's amazing. You feel like Indiana Jones when you uncover these films and you're able to share them with the world. It's just it's an amazing thing. And just when you think you've figured everything out, you find something new that nobody knew existed. So it's always a mystery.
Yeah, no, that's really great. And another thing, because of the name of this show, the Norman Bates Memorial Soundtrack Show, you also have kind of a connection to Psycho, that you put together a short documentary when Universal released the uncut version of Psycho, but didn't tell anybody what was cut to begin with. So you put a little thing to talk about that. Talk about the uncut version of Psycho.
I think it was 2020, so that would have been the 60th anniversary of the film. Universal released the uncut version. Now, it's interesting because there's some scholars that argue this, but basically it's about 12 or so seconds of film that was actually put back into this. And, the hardcore fans like me noticed those little scenes, but most people wouldn't even notice the difference. So I was honestly a little disappointed that there was no little documentary on the Blu-ray explaining exactly what was different about it. So, of course, this was during COVID times, so I had a lot of free time. So I sat down and I sort of did a side-by-side of what was changed and what was different. And, essentially it only adds up to being about 12 or so seconds, 12 to 15 seconds extra in the film that's spread out over a couple scenes. But I do go in depth about it and explain why this was cut and why this was here. And Hitchcock did a really great thing. He was smart. He knew that the censors would cut certain things. So if he really wanted to get something through into his film, he would put a scene in that he knew for sure would get cut. And he would use that as sort of a bargaining chip to say, okay, well, if you're going to cut this, which he knew was going to be cut from the beginning, let me keep this. So he was sly in the way that he would kind of gaslight the censors. There's a shot of Norman, a couple of the shots that are in the extended version, a shot of Norman with blood on his hands that was cut down when, again, no spoilers for Psycho. Close your ears if you haven't seen it. When Mother kills Detective Arbogast and pushes him down the stairs, there's an extra stab before the scene fades out. In the version that most everyone has seen, it's only 2 stabs. In the third version, it's 3 stabs. Or in the uncut version, it's 3 stabs. And the last stab seems to be the most aggressive one. So you can kind of see why they cut that. But yeah, it's great to have it, and it's a wonderful thing. I just felt that people needed to know exactly what was different about it. So.
Well, that's great. So Nigel Dreiner is on the phone with us today. He is going to be introducing the Lost World show tonight. This is going to be the 1925 silent film that's shown at the Niles Silent Film Museum over in the historic Niles neighborhood of Fremont tonight at 7 o'clock. And what have you seen lately in the Lost World that you noticed that you didn't feel like you'd noticed before?
Ooh, good question. I guess it would be the fact that the dinosaurs have so much personality. Every time you see the film, you see a little thing here or there that was animated into these dinosaurs that just gives them these personalities. And of course, something like that would carry on into the Godzilla series. Godzilla in the Showa era was certainly just Haru Nakajima in a suit. But you give these creative people, whether it's an actor in a suit or an animator, you give them free reign to add their own personality and their own flair into the animation. And that always comes out. Like I was saying, the King Kong boxing thing, the T-Rex in the Lost World certainly has an interesting personality, as well as the Brontosaurus. The Brontosaurus does a little growl before he starts his fight with the T-Rex, which I don't think dinosaurs could actually do, but that's beside the point. It's very
it's Hollywood.
Very entertaining.
Yeah. Well, that's tonight at the Niles Silent Film Museum. One of the things to go out with is that you did a little work to have Al Jolson and Elvis Presley sing "Are You Lonesome Tonight?" And maybe you could talk about how Elvis came to sing that song and what you did to bring the two of them together.
Oh, wonderful question. Again, that was a COVID project. So for years, obviously "Are You Lonesome Tonight" is one of Elvis's greatest hits. But many people don't know that that's a cover version of a version that Al Jolson did in, I believe, 1949. And the reason Elvis recorded it was because that was his mother's favorite song. So he recorded it for her. And if you listen to both versions, they're very similar in their presentation. I believe the song is, but the Elvis version carries a lot over from the Jolson version. And for years and years and years, people had been trying to put together the two and try to do like a duet type of thing. But unfortunately, the Elvis version and the Jolson version were in two different keys, which made it very difficult to combine. Well, through the magic of computers and editing magic, I was able to kind of alter the keys a bit so they would match each other. And it's a very, it turned out very, very well. And I did one also with Al Jolson and Frank Sinatra singing a song. But the Elvis one, I think, came out wonderfully. And many people, that has assisted in many people realizing that Al Jolson did, in fact, do the song that didn't know that before.
Well, so Nigel Dreiner has been on the phone with us. He is going to be introducing the silent 1925 film, The Lost World, tonight over at the Niles Silent Film Museum. You can go to nilesfilmmuseum.org to find out more. And break a leg tonight, Nigel. And let's listen to Al Jolson and Elvis on your source for sound, KFJC. Thank you, Nigel.
Thank you, Robert. See you soon.
Are you lonesome tonight? Do you miss me tonight?
Are you lonesome tonight? Do you miss me tonight? Are you sorry we drifted apart?
Does your memory stray to a bright summer day when I kissed you and called you sweetheart?
Do the chairs in your parlor seem empty and bare?
Do you gaze at your doorstep and picture me there? Is your heart filled with pain?
Shall I come back again?
Tell me, dear, are you lonesome tonight? Is your heart filled with pain?
Shall I come back again?
Tell me, dear, are you lonesome tonight?
Broadcasting from Foothill College, this is KFJC, Los Altos Hills, and the Norman Bates Memorial Soundtrack Show.